Welcome into the show, everybody. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Hey, look at the time for the people on the podcast. Monumentous occasion where I'm only 2 minutes late. How about that? You know what? The Eagles yesterday, they set a precedent where they were like a half hour late for their press conference. And I said to myself, what do you think they are? The Farzy Show? It was a bloodbath yesterday. That's what that was. And I know a lot of people are jumping to the conclusion that people are, well, I shouldn't say a lot. Most seem to understand. Most people that actually watched the press conference yesterday, I think they got it. Then there's other people that think people like myself are only freaking out because Nick Sirianni doesn't call plays. That ain't it. We all remember that Nick Sirianni didn't call plays when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. We all remember that the Eagles turned around Nick Sirianni's rookie year as a head coach when he gave up play calling. Oh, and he also motivated the team that year to actually, win games. This year, there was none of that. And it was so drastically the opposite of what we have seen from Nick Sirianni before that it's scary. And I feel warranted a dismissal, especially with the head coaching candidates that are available, or at least were available. My guy I'd been saying the whole time was Jim Harbaugh. But watching that press conference yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, has brought me to this conclusion. Nick Sirianni has the least amount of power that he has ever had as the Eagles head coach. And he was not fired by Jeffrey Lurie. He was not fired by Howie Roseman. But what they are doing with him now is the next thing. It's what comes just before getting fired. They love the fact that they have a head coach, and you can use whatever word you want. Puppet might be too harsh, whatever, but you can use whatever word you want. They love having a guy that knows his station. They love having a guy that knows his lane and will not go outside that lane. When I listened to him yesterday talk about, well, first off, Howie Roseman talk about Sean Desai when Nick came to me and said, I'm thinking about making this change. I went, is that really how it went? And we'll play it for you. We got tons of, I don't want to call them highlights, excerpts from the press conference yesterday with Nick Sirianni saying, well, this is my decision. We moved on from Sean Desai. It was my decision. I felt that would be the best thing for the team at the time. Really? The guy that's supposed to have his finger on the pulse of the locker room more than anybody, the guy that's there in the trenches with these players, and your thought process was, let's make a change with 4 weeks left of the season. That was your decision? That's fireable. Do you mean to tell me Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, you looked at your head coach and he made that decision, you went, come on back for more? No thanks. When people break it down, though, to go back to the idea of play calling, when people break it down and go, plenty of coaches don't call plays. Well, yeah, I mean, just look at the conference championship games. 3 of the 4 coaches don't call plays? Yeah, well, you know what they do? You know what they do, in fact, do? They have their team ready to play. And the Eagles did not look at all ready to play. They have their teams focused. The Eagles did not look at all focused after the San Francisco 49ers game. A lot of people looked at that Kansas City Chiefs game and said, oh, that'll be the Eagles Super Bowl this year. Oh, they beat the Chiefs. Now they can just kick back and relax. Well, after that, they beat the Bills, albeit they needed some luck on their side. They needed Josh Allen to throw yet another interception, and that happened. And then they ran into a buzzsaw when they went on and faced the San Francisco 49ers. And that's where this team got spayed and neutered. And then you put Nick Sirianni out there yesterday to try to answer for this. And you put him up there next to Howie Roseman, which in a way I think makes Nick a little bit more nervous. He definitely seemed a little bit more nervous yesterday trying to answer these questions. But my overall takeaway is that Nick Sirianni has never had less power. And if you follow the bouncing ball of his career, Nick Sirianni was supposed to come in here and have the fresh ideas that he talked about in his press conference yesterday. He was supposed to, have answers for an offense that may get stale from time to time. He was supposed to have those answers. He didn't have those answers. Nick Sirianni came in here and was supposed to be the play caller. That was given up within a matter of a few weeks of him being the head coach. And you know what? I don't fault him for it. True, the easy joke to go to, the low-hanging fruit, is the line that we so often use on this show from Office Space. What is it you say you do here when you have a meeting with the Bobs, right? If you're an offensive-minded head coach and you don't call plays, what do you do? Well, then you should be overseeing the entire team. You should be making the tough decisions for the entire team, and you should have final say on going forward on fourth down, on the game plan in general. That's what you should be doing as the head coach. I didn't see any of that this year. How many times do we see the Eagles get out to slow starts and then have to really scratch and claw to get back in games in the second half? An ungodly amount. That's not good. That's bad. That's not a good game plan, and that's what's supposed to be Nick Sirianni's deal. The game plan, if he's not calling plays, it was a horrible game plan. Nick Sirianni has his fingerprints on the game plan more than ever when it comes to the first 15 plays of the game, the scripted plays, if you will. They rarely worked. Horrendous this season. If you follow the bouncing ball and we get to this point where you have now hired two new coordinators, or excuse me, going into last season, you hired two new coordinators. Nick Sirianni has been through, let's see here, two defensive coordinators this season, essentially. He has been through now two offensive coordinators over the last 2 years. Both those guys have called plays. One he went to the Super Bowl with. That guy left and nearly took a team to the playoffs in his first year despite having their starting quarterback injured. And then this year, he limps into the playoffs with that new offensive coordinator and play caller. That's a scary thing to think about. Very scary thing to think about. Because this could have been all Shane Steichen. This could have been all his creativity, all his know-how when it comes to calling plays offensively and understanding the rhythm and flow of a game. And now it seems like the Eagles are going to be looking for that guy to just take over that control. And that was another thing from Nick yesterday. Control. In the past, for instance, when Nick Sirianni 2 years ago talked about Shane Steichen taking over the play calling, when he admitted it openly that Shane Steichen was going to call plays, I didn't have a problem with that. Okay, all right, Shane Steichen calls plays. Maybe Shane Steichen's a better play caller. Okay, fine. Turns out Shane Steichen's a lot better of a play caller than Nick Sirianni. Now, how do I know that if Nick Sirianni hardly calls the plays and it was Brian Johnson? Well, because Nick Sirianni looked at Brian Johnson and said to himself, I can't do better than that. That's scary. Instead, he makes the change on the defensive side of the ball. Scary. Very scary. But when you talk about control, Nick Sirianni in the past, when he was asked about not calling plays, he would always talk about how it was his offense. He took ownership of the offense, took ownership of the game plan going into it. It's not just on Sundays. That's not just what matters. What matters is what happens in the 6 days leading up to the game. That's what he would talk about, how much he loved game planning. And I listened to his answer and I went, okay, you know what? Plenty of guys are the CEO type coaches. And I'm like, good for him. This is what he wants to do. More power to him. And then I listened to him yesterday. And he had multiple chances yesterday to talk about how it was his offense, about how he had control on his offense, of his offense. And whoever comes in, he was going to work with for his offense. And he invoked a phrase that brought me back to Matt Patricia of this season. Matt Patricia, when he was asked about making changes on the defense, he said, well, this isn't my defense. This is the Eagles' defense. Okay. Well, I can kind of see that because he's only got 4 games to do whatever, to implement whatever he wants to implement. So, yeah, okay, fine. That makes sense. Nick Sirianni said yesterday, whoever the new offensive coordinator is, they're going to be in charge of the offense. And the offense is going to be the Eagles' offense. Where's the ownership that we have heard so much about from Nick Sirianni in the past? This isn't about calling plays, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't about that at all. Would it be nice if your offensive-minded head coach called plays? Yeah, sure, it would be nice. But it's not about that. It's about the dwindling power of a head coach of your football team. What is he doing here then if he is not saving the season with a rah-rah flower power speech like he did in his rookie season? What is he doing if he's not making the ultimate adjustment to help the team make it into the playoffs like he did during his rookie season by giving the play calling to Shane Steichen and then ultimately leading this offense into the playoffs and then to a Super Bowl appearance? What is he doing? Because I didn't see any of that this year. I didn't see any of helping Jalen Hurts make adjustments as a quarterback. I didn't see anything to help the demise of Jalen Hurts as a quarterback as the season wound down. I didn't see any of that. The only thing I saw was a drastic move that your coach is taking responsibility for, although I believe unjustly taking responsibility for, that led to the ultimate demise of this football team. and told half the locker room it was your fault. We did this in spite of you. We got to 10-3 in spite of you. So we're going to make a drastic change with our play caller defensively. And then it told the rest of the locker room, nah, I'm not in charge. That's what it did. Because the locker room believes that change came from higher up. If you watched that yesterday and thought to yourself, oh, we're fine. I want whatever you're having. I want a piece of that, whatever you got. Because of all the press conferences I've watched this year and through all the years, that one was just one that left you really wanting any morsel of confidence. And I looked through it yesterday. I know I said the word confidence was going to be the big buzzword going through it. Not really. Not yesterday. I only said maybe a couple of times for the president, maybe 3 or 4. I put the over-under, I think, at 10.5? Nope. And that's appropriate because there wasn't a lot of confidence coming from that press conference, unfortunately. They are confident. Things I didn't take excerpts of. They are confident in Jalen Hurts bouncing back. Jalen Hurts will work his ass off to make sure that he is back to his MVP caliber form from a year ago. So anything Jalen has to work on, Jalen's going to work on. So that's nice. Howie talked about why Nick was back, basically, and he said, because there's one way I think it brought up confidence, the confidence that he will come back next year and we'll have a better team and they will have a better coaching staff and all that. So that's all fine and dandy. Those are just a couple of things that they brought in there. Howie did talk about the linebackers. I do have that for you. And yes, of course, the Vic Fangio story. Now, in case you missed it, here we are. Adam Schefter, during the press conference yesterday, talked about how the Philadelphia Eagles are in on Vic Fangio, who has mutually agreed with the Miami Dolphins to part ways and make his way north to Philadelphia. Vic Fangio is originally from just about the Scranton area, a little north of Scranton, okay? And he chose Philadelphia. Okay, could have been New York with Wink Martindale being out of there, but no. He's coming to Philadelphia, apparently. Adam Schefter dropping this nugget during the press conference yesterday, saying Dolphins and Vic Fangio have mutually agreed to part ways. Sources tell him and Jeremy Fowler. Fangio now will be the top target for the Philadelphia Eagles to hire as their defensive coordinator, and a deal is expected. Huh? Miami is allowing Fangio to leave to be closer to his family in Pennsylvania. Fangio and the Eagles had interest in working together in 2023, but the timing didn't work. This time, it will. Adam Schefter is saying Vic Fangio is your next defensive coordinator. I know people look at Jonathan Gannon, they look at Sean Desai, they look at Nick Sirianni, and overall what the Eagles have wanted over the last 4 years. They have wanted a defensive coordinator that runs Vic Fangio's scheme. Hope you like the arcade because you're going to have a lot of corners, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to have a lot of blitzing, as we know. But here's one thing I will say to inspire any amount of confidence or at least give a little bit of hope to people on a day like today. We've had the Vic Fangio cover band with Jonathan Gannon and most recently Sean Desai. Now we're going to get the original. Now we're going to see how that guy actually cooks in his own kitchen rather than somebody else trying to make the creme brulee without him. That's what we're going to get. The Eagles aren't getting off this. The Eagles are not steering away from Vic Fangio's scheme. Wink Martindale, that's a sexy name. He blitzes a lot. We love blitzing. We love being aggressive. We love forcing turnovers. Well, the Vic Fangio defense helped the Dolphins get to a +2 in the turnover differential this year, so that's nice. They were third in the league in sacks, so that's nice. I'd like to have that, again this season. A team that does still get after the quarterback. Jonathan Gannon running the Vic Fangio cover band defense got 70 sacks 1 year with this team, so that's pretty nice. And another thing that I'll take away from this, I don't have to question the experience of your defensive coordinator. Hey, look, it was a long time ago that Vic Fangio was the defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers when they were going to back-to-back NFC championship games, when they were going to a Super Bowl against the Baltimore Ravens. And I remember watching that defense. I remember being out there in San Francisco and in Santa Clara watching those defenses. Well, no, it wasn't Santa Clara yet. It was still San Francisco. But I remember being out there watching those defenses being like, damn, that is something special. Man, what they do out there is special. Especially, what really jumped out to me? The tackling. The tackling really jumped out at me. The attitude of those guys going out there, getting guys down. A catch would be made, boom, guy tackled. Yards after the catch weren't a thing. That's one of the things I look back on about his years in San Francisco and go, man, that guy. Before Chip Kelly was hired, people were talking about Vic Fangio possibly becoming the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's got head coaching experience. So if things do go ass up with Nick Sirianni in the early goings of this season, I don't know who the OC is going to be just yet. They'll probably lean in that direction. But at least you got at least one guy in here with head coaching experience who could slide into that role. I didn't have a lot of confidence in Sean Desai. I was curious to see what Sean Desai was going to be, what he was going to do. He wasn't the first choice of the Eagles anyway. Vic Fangio was, and then it got botched with Jonathan Gannon and his move to Arizona. So the Eagles lost out on that, had to make the panic hire of hiring Sean Desai. Wow, 2 panic moves on the defensive side of the football. So if I can look at any hope, it's obviously the experience. It's what I've seen from Vic Fangio in the past. And it's that he is not the cover band version of the Vic Fangio. He is not Pearl Jam cover band, okay? He is Pearl Jam. I at least want to see that. By the way, I mean, to anyone who's a huge Pearl Jam fan, I don't mean that he's like on the same level of Pearl Jam, like as great in the rock industry, whatever, as he is in the football industry. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's the OG, okay? He's not the Frank Sinatra impersonator. He is Frank Sinatra, okay? That's all I'm saying by it. I don't mean to imply status. Where else can I go? I don't know. But that's where I'm at. Without further ado, if you missed the press conference yesterday, let's jump into it. And the first thing is what they're looking for in a new offensive coordinator. Here's Nick Sirianni when he was asked about it yesterday.
It's now about bringing in fresh ideas, some different thoughts than what a lot of the guys, sometimes when you're with a group of guys, like we've been together for 3 years, that group of guys. But in addition to that, it was a couple of the other guys that I've been with for multiple years as well. And so we just wanted to bring in some fresh ideas, and that's where we are with that.
With those fresh ideas, Nick, how willing are you to change some of the structure of your offense if you see fit?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what you're saying, exactly what we're talking about. So, it's just about putting the players in the best positions to succeed, but and doing things differently at times too. But there's going to be things that whoever the new coordinator is, there's going to be things that they bring that are going to be fresh ideas for us to help our players grow and help our players play at the top level. And there's been some things that we've done really well on offense too in the past that that you'll mesh in some of that together as well. I think with some of the success that we've had these last 3 years and the things that our guys do well. And so I'm excited about that. The new ideas meshing with some of the old ideas. We'll see how that continues to go as we go through our off-season process and where we land with that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, when you get to me, we got a little bit stale on offense by the end.
Okay. All right. Stale on offense by the end. Fine. All right. At this point of the press conference, we're like 4 minutes into the press conference, and I'm listening to Nick Sirianni, and I'm going, okay. All right. He still has me. All right. I'm listening. I got it. Yeah. Did the offense get stale? Hell yeah, the offense got stale. Do they need fresh ideas? Hell yeah, they need fresh ideas. I'd like to see, the head coach have those, ideas, but he didn't. But that's fine. You know what? He's a CEO type coach. I'm fine with everything he just said. Did it tend to ramble at times? Absolutely, he tended to ramble at times. But I'm still in. This is where I started to go, uh-oh. This is where I started to go, I don't know where Nick's going with this. And this is where Jeff McClain said, okay, all right, so fresh ideas. And you heard a great follow-up question there from Dave Zangaro. And he said, okay, so hold on a second. So how are you going to adjust your scheme and what you want to do to what the new OC wants to do? Everything's fine. It's not going to get stale. I'm still with Nick Sirianni. Now, through this entire process, as I started the show with, through this entire process of Nick Sirianni being the head coach of the Eagles, even when he took play calling away from himself and gave it to Shane Steichen, relinquished play calling, he had this beautiful answer 2 years ago about why he did it. And how, as a head coach, he's got to talk to the refs. He's got to talk to the defense. He's got to oversee everything. And one of the big things he would say after every game is, my name's on everything as the head coach. Okay, fine. That's fine. That is not a new concept. As I pointed out earlier, 3 of the 4 coaches don't call plays that are in the conference championship games here. I'm fine with that. But then he was asked by Jeff McClain, okay, so this is still your offense, right? And this is the answer that made me go, Nick?
Rotation, though, it'll be your scheme and you'll have final authority on what is run.
Yeah, it's our scheme. It will be our scheme.
Right there, let me just stop. It's ours. Okay. Throughout this entire process, it has been yours. You have taken ownership of the offense. The only answer to give there is, of course. Well, yeah. Same thing I've been doing, game plan and all that stuff. Absolutely, yeah. I don't mind the open-mindedness. You need open-mindedness. You mean to tell me you watched this Eagles season all year and you went, oh, this Eagles offense, you didn't say once that they didn't need fresh ideas. They look stale. No, we all said that. So if the head coach acknowledges that, at least he's on the same page as us. He's not BSing us. But then from the top rope, Jeff McClain comes in and goes, but hold on, this would be like previous years where you still have final say, you have this, you have that. And his first thing to jump to is, oh, it'll be ours. So he's skirting responsibility there. Hey, look, open-mindedness is great. But open-mindedness to the point of other people having power or final say is you-know-what crazy to me. Here's the rest.
Rotation, though, it'll be your scheme and you'll have final authority on what is run.
Yeah, it's our scheme. It will be our scheme of what we're doing. And so again, I don't know exactly what that will look like yet, right? We're bringing in a guy to bring in new ideas, to do the things that he's done in the past. We're going through an extensive search to get that right person. But it'd be crazy not to add some of the things that we've done in the past here as well. I don't know if it's going to be 95% this, 90. We're not there yet, right? We're working on getting the best guy in here for the job. And a guy who has a vision, a guy who's going to call the plays, a guy who's going to be able to coach a quarterback in the same sense there. So it's just about getting the right guy, and then we'll decide where that goes. But I'm hiring him to do a job, and to be in charge of the offense.
Yeah, in charge of the offense. I don't want to hear from a head coach that anybody else is in charge. The only thing that is somewhat acceptable is the idea of an offensive-minded head coach not being in charge of the defense. So especially if you hire a guy like Vic Fangio. You hire Vic Fangio, fine. It's his defense. He's doing what you want to do anyway. But the idea of a head coach saying that the offense coordinator will be in charge of the offense is bonkers. Because that's one thing that Nick has held on to. Being in charge of the offense. Yeah, well, he won't call plays, but he'll say, and he said throughout this season, it's my offense, Brian calls the plays. It's my offense, Brian calls the plays. Now all of a sudden he's not taking ownership of his offense? Excuse me. I'm so sorry. New thing now. Of the Eagles offense? This is not. I can't stress enough. For the people who be like, a lot of people don't call plays. This isn't about play calling. This is about the diminishing power of a head coach, still a head coach of this football team. And I commented on this next clip. I commented on this next clip on social media. And I just said it's wild that a head coach was essentially asked. A head coach in the NFL was essentially asked, what is it you do? What is your job? If the defensive guy is going to have control of the defense and the offensive guys have control of the offense, what are you doing? What is it you do here? So I said Jeff McClain came in from the top rope with a totally legitimate question. Tim McManus of ESPN came in from the top rope. No, he got the ladder, climbed the ladder with a steel chair, and came down to drop this on Nick Sirianni.
Nick, if the offensive coordinator is going to be in charge of the offense and the defensive coordinator is going to be in charge of the defense, what is your role going to be?
The head coach of the football team.
What does that entail? How does it change?
Yeah, I guess it'd be this very similar to what's going on right now. Does that mean I'll sit more into defensive meetings at times? Maybe, right? Instead of always being in an offensive meeting, maybe I go to a defensive meeting here and there. But my job is to be the head coach of the team, not the head coach of the offense, not the head coach of the defense, not the head coach of the special teams, but be the head coach of the football team. And so that's building the culture. That's making sure the culture's, working, with our 5 core values, are taking every day at a time. Like, we're not coming up with new core values. We may shuffle of where the things are that are important. and the most important. But that's diving into that, building the culture, having a relationship with the guys on the football team. Because I know when I have that connection with the guys on the football team, that's when things are, that's when the culture is working and working at high level. And then that's where our connection with the players and then their connection with each other works well too.
Okay. I watched the press conference live. I did an instant reaction show right after exclusively on the Farzy Show YouTube channel. We didn't put it out on the podcast. For the people on the podcast, you didn't miss anything. I basically what I'm telling you is I've listened to this answer 5 times already. Each time it gets worse. And let me stress this. I root for Nick Sirianni. I really do. I rooted for him to find the answer, and that just wasn't for the overall greater good of the Eagles and the fan base. That is because I like Nick Sirianni. I think he is a respectable fella. All right, good family man, right? I like Nick Sirianni. Every time I listen to it, I can't believe it. Because you're a head coach in the NFL. Do you mean to tell me Dan Campbell would have answered that question the same way? Do you mean to tell me John Harbaugh would answer that question the same way? You got asked the question, what is your role? You responded with the job title. Fine. Okay. And then when you're asked to expound upon that a little bit, you actually got into detail. I shouldn't say even detail. Broad detail of what you do. Where is the easy hit? It's not hard. And I hope that this was just him being nervous as hell, because I don't want to believe that my head coach has been neutered. I don't want to believe that. I hope he was just nervous. But judging from what he said, the words that came out of his mouth into the microphone for all of us to hear, all I needed to hear was, my job hasn't changed. I'm still the head coach of this football team. I still have final say on this, that, and the other. I still have control over these things. I'm still running the show. Tell me what you have already told me in the past. And the fact that you're not telling me what you told me in the past about how it's your offense, as you said, as recently as throughout this entire year when play calling was in question. Tell me about your game plan. Don't tell me about how you might sit in on more defensive meetings. What? Really? With Vic Fangio, okay, that sounds interesting. That doesn't make any sense. And I am baffled at that answer. If you ask anyone who has a pride and power in their own position at the workplace, well, what do? Generally speaking, you're probably going to get scoffed at. I know in Philadelphia, you'll probably get scoffed at. And that's what Nick Sirianni should have done. The only thing he should have said is, I'm the head coach of this football team. What else do I need to say? Oh, okay, but what do you have? These guys doing this, that, those guys doing that. What are you doing? What would you say your role is? I'm the head coach of this football team. I come from an offensive background. I do the game plan. I draw up the scheme. That's what I'm going to be doing. Will I be doing it in conjunction with new people? Yeah, but nothing else changes as far as my role goes. I'm still here. Instead, he's talking about core values. What are you? Are we back? Like, if you are a person, and I know who is it? Sean Kilrain coined the phrase in our chat. Sirianni. If you're Sirianni, you have absolutely 1 billion% given the people of the Sirianni school of thought so much fodder for the remainder of your coaching tenure. So much fodder. Because your offense coordinator is in control, in charge of your offense. Your defense coordinator is going to be in charge of your defense. So what do? Well, we have core values. See our motivational poster. You are a wonderful football player. You can figure things out. You are a good person. That's yeah. So the question from Jeff McClain about, well, it's still yours, right? And he answered it that way. And I went, not great. And then Tim McManus came in, climbed the ladder with the steel chair, boom, fall down there, right onto Nick Sirianni. That made me put my hands in the middle of the table and just go, I'm out. The Eagles haven't fired Nick Sirianni, but they did the next closest thing to it. Neutered him. That was not a good showing yesterday. Just to give you their reaction to the story of Vic Fangio. So I showed you what came out from Adam Schefter during, and I'm hoping that the guys that are there on the scene see the story. I'm sure all of them have notifications set to Adam Schefter, so I'm sure they'd see it. Here's how it broke yesterday.
It just came out just now that said that Vic Fangio and the Dolphins parted ways, and that specifically the Eagles will be. He will be
It's just like what happened when you had to do a press conference at one time. It's like just
buyer trade.
what
That's what it was, yeah.
what was it?
It was the buyer trade.
Oh, it wasn't. Yeah.
It says specifically he will be the top target for the Eagles. I'm just curious if you can comment on that.
We got a lot of good targets that we're working through. You know, and there are a lot of guys that have done really well in their interview process, and look forward to continue on that process. We'll see what happens.
Look, they don't say anything. The only reason I played it is because they were asked about it. It was brought up during the press conference, and I just wanted to hear how it went down. So it's been at least somewhat addressed. I found it interesting that Howie Roseman went to the Kevin Byard trade, where they were all talking about Kevin Byard with Nick Sirianni. When they traded for Kevin Byard, the report was already out there. And Nick's like, "Oh yeah, is that happening?" And he's like, as he's answering the question, he's looking over at Bob Lang, PR guru Bob Lang. Bob, can I have a little help here? Bob, got it? Nope. Okay. Bob, please. Nope. Okay. Well, it turns out they did get Kevin Byard. He was here. So when the Vic Fangio story comes out and Howie Roseman first thinks about Kevin Byard, it kind of leads me to believe even more so with Adam Schefter saying he's coming back, or he's coming to the Eagles. It kind of makes me believe even further he's coming to the Eagles. So that's how they addressed it yesterday in the press conference. A couple more for you here from yesterday. I really felt that all these questions were really good. I felt like they were very good questions. Nick Sirianni skirted a question a number of times, and it was about Jalen Hurts and whether or not he had a conversation with Jalen Hurts about Brian Johnson being let go because of their personal relationship. He really had to be nailed down. And in one or two occasions, he started answering the question, stopped, and went, "Oh, what was the question?" Just like, all right, we have learned further, more mounting evidence to add to the idea that Nick Sirianni's natural habitat is not a press conference. But he was asked yesterday, I thought a really good question, and this was by Zach Berman. Did you have to sell yourself to Jeffrey Lurie? So the end of the meeting happened. The end of the season happens. Jeffrey Lurie goes to St. Martin. We have snow here in Philly. They have the locker room clean out day and all that stuff. And still no word from the Eagles on anything with Nick Sirianni. Things are getting leaked out about coordinators. And then you have the meeting with Jeffrey Lurie. Did you feel like you had to sell yourself to Jeffrey Lurie is the question from Zach Berman to Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, again, it was the same. It was business as usual of how we go about an end of year meeting. You know, obviously, what my thought is there, and so it was just normal, Zach. It wasn't anything different than it's been the last 3 years. Now, in my mind, you better believe I'm thinking, how do I reprove myself, right? I was a young coach that Mr. Lurie and Howie and this organization trusted to give the job to. I had to prove myself that, you know, this guy can lead, you know, the organization like they asked me to, and I had to prove myself from then. And I think that, you know, you asked me that question, like, did I have to sell my vision? No, because again, it was business as usual. But you better believe that I'm thinking after that 1-6 finish, after starting the way we started and doing the things that we've done in the past, that I'm thinking I'm going to prove them right again. That, you know, and we're going to prove them right. We got to reprove ourselves. We got to go prove it again. And so that's how I feel right now. That's how, you know, I'm attacking this off season. That's how I'm attacking this upcoming, you know, season as we get ready for it. Just hungry to be able to prove myself again to, you know, Mr. Lurie and the faith that he's had in me, and Howie and the faith he's had in me, and the rest of the team and the city.
Okay. All right. Who wants to prove it? You know what? Point for Nick Sirianni. The only thing I didn't like was, you know, business as usual. It's like, The last time you went into that office after that kind of end to a season? When's the last time you went into that office where supposedly you made a horrendous coaching change during the year? Business as usual? Okay. But for the most part, you know what? Good for him. Point for Sirianni overall with the way he answered that question. That was a question that he said. I'm sorry, what was the question? He started answering it, and it was like, hold on, why are you talking about Skittles and your favorite breakfast cereals when the question was about selling yourself to Jeffrey Lurie? Sorry, what was the question? But he didn't talk about Skittles and whatever. I'm exaggerating. But when it comes to Nick Sirianni answering that question, I give him a point. I give him a point Sirianni for that one because he's being honest right there. In his mind, he's got to prove himself again. In his mind, it's not, oh, everything's hunky-dory. I got all the answers. No, we got a lot of work to do. That's the only thing. One of the only things he said during the press conference after the debacle from Jeff McClain and Tim McManus asking him about, so what do you do exactly? And this is yours? After that, the only thing that I went, good for you, Nick Sirianni, was we got a lot of problems here. We got to find a way to fix the problems. In my mind, I'm thinking I have to prove it again that I'm the right man for this job. Good for you, because yes, that is accurate. I think that is very accurate. There's no question to me he is still very much on the hot seat when it comes to this Philadelphia Eagles team and the future of this team. And if they bring in let's just say for a second they do bring in Cliff Kingsbury, for instance. Look to your left, look to your right. Both those guys have been head coaches in the NFL, and your hot seat is sizzling right now. Yee! Not great. Not great. Look, the biggest story from the season, other than Jalen Hurts' regression this year, other than that, is the demise of the Philadelphia Eagles. The demise of the Philadelphia Eagles got an exclamation point put on it, and really a lock put on it that they weren't going to be able to get off the old schneid there, was when they fired Sean Desai, or relieved him of his play calling responsibilities and went to Matt Patricia with 4 games left in the season. I only play this because it's what we talked about a lot. Howie was asked the question about what do you do in the decision-making of moving on from Sean Desai as your play caller. Howie Roseman said, well, Nick comes to me and tells me what he's thinking, and we try to support him in any way we can. Okay, so it's on Nick. The question was followed up with, would you do it again? If you had it to do over again, would you make that same decision? I would sure as hell hope not, because of how drastic it turned out to be, to have a drastic impact on the season. But Nick Sirianni was asked the question, would you do it again? And this is the way he answered it.
I understand that anything that I do, make any decision that I make, if it doesn't work out, you can look at it and second guess it. So we are right now. At the time I made that decision, like I've told you guys, I made that decision because I thought it was the best decision that for the team. And, obviously we all fell short at the end, at those last 6 weeks of the season, right? All of us did. And so, I say, obviously Matt was in a tough situation, because you can't completely change, the defense, right? And so he was, trying to, make some things happen with, quite frankly, things that weren't his defense. So I know I put Matt in a tough spot. I know I put Sean in a tough spot, obviously. But at the time that I did that, I did it because I thought it was the best decision for the football team. And there's a lot of decisions I have to make. Like,
I was really expecting that answer to be one of the collaborative answers. Well, we don't make that big a decision with just one person. We talk about it with the front office, with the coaching staff, with the players, and that was the best solution we could come up with why the defense was struggling so much. We can stop the bleeding defensively if we make this decision. Howie and I talked. We talked to the players, and that's the best solution we could come up with to attempt to fix the problem that the defense was having. Okay, well, what about the staleness of the offense? With 4 weeks left in the season, you didn't think that there was staleness in the offense? No? Okay. What changes were made there? None? Okay, interesting. So let me get this straight. to go back to this point, again, it's not just about play calling. If you're looking at this from just a play calling standpoint, that is such a novice beginner level to look at it. That's barely scratching the surface of the problem here. If you have a problem with Nick Sirianni not calling plays, okay, fine. But the only reason I had a problem with him not calling plays this year is because you mean to tell me you couldn't do better than Brian Johnson? Nick Sirianni? That's a problem. Your offense is stale, as you've admitted. Your offense is flat. You need fresh ideas, and you couldn't come up with anything to help. Bonkers to me. Absolutely bonkers. So it's not about calling plays for me. You want to talk about game plan? Okay, if you're not calling plays, you better have that great game plan that you've been working on all week. And that's prior to this season what we've always heard from Nick Sirianni, that it was his game plan. That's what he works on throughout the year. Yes, he's got his name on everything as the head coach, but throughout the year, throughout the week, he's working on those game plans, baby. He's working on those game plans. That didn't look so great this season. Did he maintain the focus of the locker room? No, didn't maintain the focus of the locker room. Was he motivating the locker room? Did you watch the end of the season? Did you watch them? The thing that's so haunting about the Giants game at the end of the year was they had basically marching orders going into that game. We want to get right before the playoffs. We want to have a good game under our belt. Get out there and really attack. And they laid an egg. Then they go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they've dropped from the number 1 seed to the 5th seed. Even despite the fact that they lost to the 49ers, they lost to the Cowboys, they still had an opportunity to gain the number 1 seed. And also, oh yeah, by the way, win the division, of course. Win the division and get the number 1 seed. Flat as a board to end the season. So that's a guy that's not calling plays. That's a guy putting together a game plan. That's a guy that's supposed to have his team focused. That's a guy that's supposed to have his team motivated. Oh, and he's also supposed to have the pulse of the team. Well, if he's making the decision to move on from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia with 4 weeks left in the season, he's making that decision. He's supposed to have the pulse of the locker room, and it could not have been a bigger dud or a bomb dropped on the chemistry of the locker room. I did what was best for the team. Did you talk to anybody on the team? Because nobody seemed like that was it. Nobody said, oh, that was a great idea. We had to make that change. Nobody. So for the people that are just focusing on play calling, you're missing the point. It's about those other core values that he talks about, one of them being accountability. Okay, I guess Sean Desai was held accountable because he was struggling and he made a change. But that late in the season, it's pretty weak. So those are my issues from Nick Sirianni's press conference yesterday, at least what he had to say as part of this press conference. One thing that I know people did take exception with was Howie Roseman talking about his linebacker position. Here's the one thing I'll play from you regarding Howie Roseman. And this is another thing. Usually in a joint press conference, Howie Roseman's the star of the show. Howie Roseman's fielding all the questions. And there was one point, and I've never heard Howie do this before. He interjected without getting a question. Nick, and and this was really bad. It came after the "what is it you say you do here?" question. It came after Nick was, hey, so the offense does that, the defense does that. What do you do? What's your role? And he actually answered the question. I would have so much more respect for Nick if he just would have been like, what the hell kind of question is that? I'm the head coach. What else do I need to say? Like, that would have been a baller answer. I would be like, good for you. You know what I mean? Like Henry Hill getting arrested for the first time in Goodfellas. Hey, you did it. But he didn't go that way. And so he answers that question, goes on for a minute and 15 seconds. And Howie interjects. Howie's like, let me get a question. Like, guys, give me a question. I'm gonna give me a question. He jumps in like he's saving the guy. Like, Jesus, Nick, what are you doing, man? What are you doing over there? In the radio business, we used to say, turn that guy's mic off. But this is one question from Howie Roseman that was asked to him, basically building a team defensively. And the brag he goes to that I feel is interesting is the linebacker position, which I know we all just have a boatload of great things to say about the Eagles and their philosophy on linebackers.
Yeah, I feel like we've had a long history of success here, building a team a certain way. And I think maybe there's some preconceived notions that, we're just at the linebacker position, that we don't care who we play at linebacker. And again, our 2 Super Bowl teams over the last 6 years, linebacker play was good, from those guys. And I think, if anything, it's my belief in the players that we have, the young players that we have. I have a lot of belief, and I know Coach does as well, in Nakobe Dean, and so I believe in the player, I believe in the person. We lost 2 linebackers at that spot, 2 good players from our Super Bowl team. And we had Nakobe wait in the wings. We drafted him for that role. Obviously, it didn't work out perfectly for him this year. That doesn't change the belief we have in the player. And then, we felt like we'd have the ability to get an off-ball linebacker, a will linebacker who can run and hit. And honestly, when you watch the tape, Zach Cunningham had a good year. He really did, and he had a mentality that we liked from that position. Of course, we missed some of the guys that left as free agents. Missed some of the guys on and off the field that we had strong relationships with.
I like the idea he took it upon himself that he was asked about the defensive line. That was a question about the defensive line. I didn't tee that up. He was asked about the defensive line, and then he took it upon himself to go down the avenue of, I know there's a misconception about how we don't value linebackers. It's like, yeah, there's a huge, why? Because that's what it is. You don't value linebackers. Like TJ Edwards for $19 million, 3 years, really? Couldn't do that deal? The guy you invested in, as far as an undrafted pick, that's not a big investment, but the guy that came along, showed improvement, you're like, cool, thanks for your time, see ya. The really weird thing about that is that before him, there was Alex Singleton. Alex Singleton, great guy, friend of the show, led the team in tackles, was a top tackler in the NFL, was one of the top tacklers in the NFL, believe it or not. I think lacked the instinct that a guy like TJ Edwards has, and at least the quickness to get to the ball. A little different there, but still, you had 2 guys that took that position and ran with it. Showed you they could at least play the spot. TJ Edwards would be a little bit more of an impact player than Alex Singleton was, but both could play the position. And instead now, you're looking at Nakobe Dean and going, all right, this guy's got it. And you know what? I still want to see Nakobe Dean play a whole year. Hopefully that'll happen. I know a lot of people worried about the injury bug, and that turns out to, unfortunately, really hinder the last 2 seasons. This season in particular, when it was really put upon him to be the starting middle linebacker of this team. So I'm still holding out a little hope there for Nakobe Dean. He's got to stay on the football field, though. Best ability is availability, as we all know. But then they had they had to scramble to get Miles Jack in here. They had to scramble to get Zach Cunningham in here. They've scrambled to find their best linebacker. Like, that's insane to me. Undrafted free agent rookie signing in Alex Singleton, gone. Undrafted rookie free agent signing, TJ Edwards, played really well, gone. And then they invest the 3rd round pick in Nakobe Dean to take over. He can't do it because of injury. And now Zach Cunningham comes in and he's your best linebacker. Kazir White, you couldn't give a contract to either. It definitely shows that you don't value it very much. So you want to talk about how we don't value linebackers and how this is a misconception. No. That's just reporting the news. It's not an opinion. That's the statement of fact. You do not value the linebacker position. Like, if the report from our friend Clay Harbor was that TJ Edwards was never even offered a deal. And they want to refute that and say, oh, no, he was offered a deal. Sure about that? I think he would have liked to stay here rather than Chicago. Bonkers to me. You guys are lighting up the chat pretty well as far as your opinions on this press conference, and we'll get to it all. We'll get to it all, that's for sure. But right now, let me tell you about the incredible people at the Game Time app, ladies and gentlemen. You want to go to the game? Want to go to the concert? Want to go to the big event? Want to go to the comedy show? Check out the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app to your phone and get incredible savings from the Game Time app. You can also view your seat before you buy it, so you know the vantage point of it, and you also get the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will get you back at 110% of the difference. That's the Game Time guarantee right there. So what do? Well, here's what you do. You download the Game Time app to your phone, you create an account, and you use promo code FARZI. That's promo code FARZI. And whatever concert, game, event, comedy show you want to go to, you get $20 off your first purchase. How about that? And also, let's not forget about the all-in pricing, so you're not surprised at the end where you say, service fees, $50. What? No. Game Time app, all-in pricing. So download the Game Time app to your phone. Get tickets. and get $20 off, courtesy of the Farzy Show, when you use promo code Farzy. When you download the Game Time app to your phone, create an account, use promo code Farzy, get $20 off your first purchase. Let's get into the chat check and see how you beautiful, gorgeous, lovely people are doing on this fine Thursday morning. Adam's Exploits, good morning, Farzy and Friends. Maybe the name of a new podcast. Well, do you folks feel better after that dog and pony press conference? I don't know. I definitely don't. T-Bro, thank you for acknowledging the earliest late you've ever been. Earliest late you've been in like a year, Farzy. I know, man. I know. My apologies. I'm turning over a new leaf. Status quo. I'm late to my New Year's resolution. Good morning, Farzy and everybody. What's going on, Kevin? How are you? Dank Birds. I felt they kept it safe, but at the same time, they revealed certain things that we expected. Like they neutered their head coach. Regardless of who made the change, the decision was bad. But it mattered. Like I think it affects the locker room as to who made the decision. Because just like making the decision sends a message to the defense that it's in spite of them, you're 10-3. It also sends a message your head coach isn't in charge. You know why Jeremy Fowler came out with the report that coaches were pissed about Brian Johnson being let go? You know why? Well, two things. One, if you're an offensive coach, your job's in jeopardy because an offensive coordinator is going to be bringing in some of his own guys, especially if he's in charge. And it also shows that the guy that's supposed to be your boss, the guy you're coaching for, doesn't have any real power and didn't fight for any of his guys. That's what it shows. Now, if Nick Sirianni would have won that Super Bowl a year ago, you bet your ass that he'd be going, excuse me, I hired Brian Johnson. I like Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson, stay and deal with it. Oh, no? Okay, I'll go elsewhere. I'm a Super Bowl winning head coach. I will find a job. Mark, what's going on? Farzy, please tell me that the Birds are not going to hire Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator. I can't because they are. Sorry. Mi scusi. Me dispiace. I feel like I like the Fangio hire, says Dank Birds. All right, Dank Birds. What has he ever won? An NFC championship? A while ago? Sorry. Dank Birds puts pressure on Howie to put better players on the field. I'll take one guy with some know-how and experience. Look, I told you yesterday, steer clear of you just need to be better than Brian Johnson. Steer clear of that on both sides of the football. But I will say this. Vic Fangio at least brings a ton of experience. And he's a guy that the Eagles have tried to replicate. So now they have him. So now maybe they'll get some more pieces for him. Brr. Why, Dank? He has had top defenses in the league. I'm not totally turned off by the idea of Vic Fangio. Like I said, he's not the cover band, so I'd rather see the original play, and that's what you're going to get with Vic Fangio. But yes, you're going to continue to see a not very aggressive defense. But what you might get is a fundamentally sound defense. Did nothing in Miami as well. Yeah, he wasn't great. The beginning of the season, Miami had one of the top offenses and defenses in the NFL, and then they fell by the wayside, unfortunately, just like the Eagles. Mal, what's going on? Sirianni is coach clap part. Duh. That's pretty funny. Dank, that's a good point. I mean, it is a valid point. Same idea, got you 70 sacks. And again, Miami was third in the league in sacks this past year. They had a top 10 run defense, I want to say, top 10 pass defense as well. Points-wise, they allowed 23 points per game. They were a bottom tier, middle of the road to bottom tier pass. I think they were ranked 22nd in the NFL in points allowed. Adam, what did you have to say up here? They don't have the same defensive personnel as 22, unfortunately. Very true, especially at linebacker. Zero creativity on offense. That is true. Mr. Spacely, what's going on? As far as that, a new head coach. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Adam's exploits. John, my man John. Made a good point this morning. Said if he finds it odd the players don't call Sirianni coach or coach Nick. Remember when Deion Sanders went off because the press didn't call him coach? Interesting. I don't remember that. I remember, I think it was Doug Peterson. He wanted to be called coach. It's a weird thing. Like, I've heard stories of Bobby Knight. Oh, let me start it in football. I've heard stories of Bill Belichick. Cameramen and reporter friends of mine have told me firsthand that they have been like, "Oh, hey, coach, how you doing? We have the interview at 1." And they have said, the coaches have said, "Hey, I'm not your coach. I'm not your coach." Bobby Knight especially told a cameraman friend of mine, "Hey, coach, we have you set up over here for the interview. I'm not your coach." I look at the term coach as I look at the term, and this is how spaced out I am, doctor. If you're a coach, you're if you're a doctor, you're a doctor. Hey, doctor. If you're a coach, you're coach. I'm friendly with my grade school coaches that I had. I still call them coach. They'll never not be coach to me. But at least they were actually my coach. But some coaches just want to be called coach all the time. So that doesn't jump out to me as odd. Wait, that's why they were late? They were on this plane. Well, John Cheeseborough, you old sandbagging SOB. How are you? That's why they were late. They were on the phone getting that sorted out. Probably talking to Vic Fangio. Ross and Found, great name. Just say no to Vic. That's pretty funny. Let's see what else we're here. Oh, John Cheeseborough, classic. Good morning, Farsian Society. Good morning, my friend. Oh, turned it off, Mike Fittery. Turned it off after they backed Dean and Cunningham. Why were they even mentioned, by the way? Howie think he Mac? Maybe. Howie was definitely in his linebackers. Hey, good morning, what's popping? How you doing? Chucky Brown. Lies! This dude's a puppet. Why are position coaches still here? I don't know. I hate the word grow now. Farzi, John Cheeseborough. The refreshing part was Sirianni saying the offense was stale and that they're looking to bring in somebody from the outside with fresh ideas. Yes. In other words, not Nick Sirianni. Sirianni isn't Tomlin or Harbaugh. Thank you, Adam. Sean Gillespie. What's going on? Saying hi to Cheese.
Sorry, I can't do that.
Why is she talking so much, man? Get out of here with your jibba jabba phone. Don't ever doubt me or my scheme. Nick Sirianni. Great, it's great. Brian, what's going on, man? Farzi, take a big whiff. Smell it. Big pile of poop emoji. Thank you. Mr. Spacely. Donovan McNabb, OC, Mike Mamula, DC 2024. Oh, God. That would be the best. That would be the best. Head coach needs to be everywhere. You got to evaluate all three coordinators. All right, fine. So thank you, Eric. One Guapo, what's going on? Nice to see you. Nick Sirianni was Kaiser Sose in the press conference. That's funny. Harris, what's going on? Laugh my ass off. At this point, Nick is going to co-write a playbook. At the very least, Nick will have created a playbook sustainable beyond future coaching changes. Nick is playing the long game. He'll absorb it. Yee. That's a very long game. And that's the other thing, too. If you neuter your head coach, then you're going to lose your offensive coordinator. If you have success again, then we're back to square one where you got to have somebody else run the offense and run the defense. You have two head coaches then. Nick is a neutered purse dog. Howie is a corgi. That's great. Let's be real. Nick has no say. April, good morning, and I agree. So does QB. QB agrees with April. Oh man, you guys are on top of it today, and not that you're never not. You guys are always on top of it. Sean Kilrain, what's going on? They should have played Master of Puppets during the presser. That's great. R. Jr. Fangio is going to be another mistake. Quite possibly. Fuji. What's popping, Fuji? Let's see. Transistor Zen. Well, that's all we could do, but that doesn't mean we can't point out the obvious. They know as well as we do that Nick's contract isn't being renewed next year. And most likely, so Nick doesn't get renewed, and then let's assume that everything goes well this next season. All right? You just assume that Nick's going to relinquish Blake, or Nick doesn't get renewed and they elevate the offense coordinator or Vic Fangio? Nah, don't think so. All right, let me get one more, and I got time for one more. He has no football knowledge whatsoever. That was the point. Obviously, scouts don't matter. On with all the first-round failures he's had. Oh, still Howie, yeah. Jim West, Game Time app. Get us to a comedy show. How do we get tickets to the NovaCare complex? That's great. Thanks, everybody in the chat. You guys are great. Uptown Marty, what's going on? Nick is lying his ass off. You guys are fans. You guys, phenomenal work out of you guys in the chat today. Phenomenal work, really. Look, I gotta run. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You guys are great as per usual. I wish I had more optimistic things to say to you today. I don't. I'll be on Fox 29 at 7:45 today. I'll also be on with our friend Bill Colarulo coming up at 10:20 today. So don't miss that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. See you.